Hello, James. I hope you're doing well out there. Well, I'm about to make another video, and it start with something that's gonna start negative, but it's gonna come out questionable, and this is directly at to some African Americans. Why some will want to stay, and if you get a good amount of money, and where you want to live, and where you want to shop, and where you want to go vacation, and if you want to live outside the United States, because as more, I'm gonna show you at the first video what Martin Luther King said, and I can understand by listening to the recent events what happened to George Floyd, this young man Jordan Neely, and it gets really discouraging, and people starting to see this. It's making national news. It's going around the world because and I know a lot of there's got to be some black people that feel like this. It's got to feel like it's going to describe what Martin Luther King says.
What's up, family? This is your man, not your boy, Go Black to Africa. I want to share with you all a video. Harry Belafonte passed away this past week. An activist who even marched with Martin Luther King. He shared a history with what Martin Luther King had said, that he led his people into a burning house. Not only that, I have the video of Martin Luther King stating his dream was a nightmare. Check that video out and I'll be back.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has in many forms turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments, and I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go. Now we're confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Now, I think this is where we're getting our greatest resistance. They may put it on many other things, but we can't get rid of slums and poverty without it costing the nation something.
The last thing Dr. King said to me before he was murdered was in my home when we were sitting planning strategy for the Poor People's Campaign, which was on the horizon of the politics of the day. That's why he went to Memphis. And in the course of that meeting, he seemed distracted and a little under-focused. And when we asked him what was the matter, Martin said, I've been thinking long and hard about our reflection has taken longer than I had suspected it would, but it has certainly come to reveal itself fully when we look at the condition in which we find not only our world, but in particular, our nation.
What do you think? You know, family, I've said this a couple years ago, and I'm glad that I found his video, him saying this was a nightmare, that Martin Luther King, his dream was a nightmare. That's what I said a few years back. When we see in Damn Erica, put the D in front of America, capitalize the E, Damn Erica, that you have people who have come into the countries, immigrants and refugees or what have you, who have established their own communities and are thriving, living and supporting their life. They may not be rich, all but middle class, and some have gone on to bigger things, but for the most part, when integration in the 60s of Martin Luther King trying to force a people into an evil system, an evil way of people who did not stand us, who despised us, who had nothing more than a ploy, a plot to keep us back, and to this day keep us back, we were a thriving people in our own communities. Though it was not perfect, though it was not innocent, it was a thriving community of brothers and sisters who had their own schools, their own physicians, their own dentists, their own bankers, their own shops, their own craftsmen, and all of these businesses that we did to help each other out. I remember the day. I remember the day when the community did not disperse out into what we see today, every man for himself. Every man go off to his own place, that fights to try to blend in, camouflage in, to try to get into what we would call a place of achievement in the white man's society or their neighborhoods or their schools. We have fought long and hard trying to remove ourselves from our own identity only to become one like them. This is only because of the image that was pushed that you are not equal unless you have been embraced by them or looked upon within their community as not being black. This is a sad day when we have forgotten who we are, forgotten where we had came from, forgotten the struggle. We have only looked upon each other as being less than. Those who are now in a wrecked community, being that the drugs and the guns that have come from the outside, we have done nothing but kill each other. But the day is changing now, because even those thugs, those ones who see themselves less than, who don't know who we are, who were not part of the struggle when it came to fighting, they are now realizing them themselves are not the enemies. You see, I've said this before, white America will get in trouble once black men wake up and realize we are not our own enemies. You see, when America has flooded the system or flooded...
I used to play these games, and I got nothing. All fake cash games.
has flooded the system or flooded the communities with guns and drugs, they have found that that curse have come back on their own. When we were screaming about the drugs in our neighborhoods, when the crack epidemic came about, now the Europeans, the white communities, are flooded with opioids. When we screamed about the guns in our communities, white people now see their schools are being shot up by their own, by mass shootings. People going into their schools, going into their malls, going into the movie theaters, that the curses have come back onto them. Mm-hmm. It's not until white people realize they have to repay what was done to black people in order for all to experience free liberty and justice. They will never see it. Now we see the epidemic of homelessness because we have screamed about inequalities of housings, opportunities to get loans for houses. Now you're seeing many of them on the streets and on every corner begging. Homelessness is at an all-time high. And when you see who's out there, who do you see? I'm saying, family, that Martin Luther King and his dream and his own admittance was a nightmare, and it was putting up people into a burning house. That if you see here in Africa how the people get along, live together, build together, thrive together. Though the democracy I disagree with, it is not a place for Africa. Africans need to get away from a democracy government. It is only for the greedy, and you have people who will always suffer and will find it harder to get into a middle class or work their way up as a majority. Africa has to stop taking on the behaviors of white America and Europe. Once we free ourselves from that and we realize that our own resources, our own opportunities bless us instead of blessing others, then we will find the greater fruits from the Most High. I am not just saying this just to throw mud on damn Erica. It is a strategic warfare that has been around for thousands of years, and how to cripple societies when they want to come in and disturb your neighborhoods, disturb your countries. The day is coming where our youth are watching these videos and realizing they are going to be the future to change their countries, their consciousness, and the way of life. Until then, I guess the old will have to die off. This is your man, not your boy.
Very point straightened. But do you know why what's happened? And he said what was integrated? Because I'm gonna show you this next video. I'm gonna play a little segment of his video.
Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
There are some people that were talking about reparations in this country. They wanted reparations. And I remember I made this particular liberal so angry at me because I told them right to their face, nobody owes you anything for slavery. If you want to tell the truth about it, it is you who owes. It's you who owes. Why do you owe? Because somebody in those fields took stripes for you. Somebody after those fields were ended and slavery was ended, somebody had to walk through Jim Crow for you. Somebody fought wars and died for you. Somebody lived less than because they didn't have what you have, and they did it for you. There are people in their graves right now, and they are there because they were willing to stand up and fight for you. Those folks on the Edmund Pettus Bridge carrying American flags, take that, Colin Kaepernick, living in a society that he could scarcely acknowledge, something that he has never known, living with a bigotry that none of us can imagine. Carried American flags on that bridge, and when they were hit upside the head with nightsticks and shot with water hoses and knocked to the ground, they got up and picked those flags up and kept marching. And they did it for you. Nobody owes you anything. If anybody owes, it's you. Because you've been the benefactor of freedom. You are the one that owes.
This is Mark Robinson. He's currently the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, and he's trying to ride the coon train all the way to the governor's mansion. He's got a history of saying stupid stuff, and it looks like he's going for a personal best. When I saw this clip, I laughed like you did when he said that the people talking about reparations, they're the ones who owe. Somebody should tell stupid that in order to owe, first you have to have received something illegitimately, or the person would have to have done something that requires them to make recompense to somebody. So what have we ever received? This country gave millions of acres of free land to people who were white, gave free government education to people classified as white, housing at extremely low rates, new housing funded by government money in the suburbs just for them, low interest business loans, and a potpourri of other goodies, giveaways, and guarantees set aside for those classified as white. And what have we done that requires us to make recompense to anybody? Who have we enslaved? Who did we discriminate against? Who did we segregate? Who did we bar from the formal opportunities that exist? Whose churches were we firebombing? Whose neighborhoods did we destroy? To say nothing of the white supremacist mobs who were allowed to kill entire towns full of black people and not be punished. The black people who Robinson was screaming about, saying that we owe them, they were the ones who were marching for reparations.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. This is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Those black people who Robinson was lying about, they were the ones trying to get us reparations, and we're continuing the struggle that they began. So that's what we're doing, reminding America that they owe us. But just understand, this is who the political parties like to see, both the left and the right, because we are owed, and we will collect. And I'm sure it's very easy to dismiss this Robinson clown because he is ridiculous on his face. When you have someone who's the loudest and the wrongest in the room, it's difficult to take him seriously. But he knows he's running a finesse. He knows that the novelty of a black man screaming anti-black talking points is like catnip for the mental midgets who comprise the Republican Party base. The Republican Party is not a political party. It's nothing more than a joint chorus of phony outrage and complaints over wrongs that were never done to them. Their only policy, if it can be called that, is indulging phony white grievance. Since the blowhards on Fox News and the white right-wing radio shows set the tone for what the GOP has to do to get attention from their perverted, degenerate base, they're competing with each other to see who can out-crazy the other crazies, who can outdo the other in terms of shameless racism. This Robinson fool knows exactly who he's playing to. They used to want alternative facts, but at this point, they don't even want alternative facts anymore. They just want pure fantasy. This guy listed all the things from slavery to Jim Crow that white racists have done against black people in this country, and you know that audience of KKK alumni he was talking to were loving taking that stroll down memory lane. If Robinson wants to talk about all the black people who were killed for trying to assert their basic rights, hell, the people he was talking to in that audience in all likelihood were some of the perpetrators. All the things he listed are the things they're proud of. Don't think he didn't know that, by the way. And then he took a page right out of John Lewis's playbook, saying that when those racists knocked down the black civil rights activists, those activists got up, picked up the flag, and kept marching. He talks about black people who were carrying American flags. Yeah, the people that he was talking to in that audience, they revere the Confederate flag. The people he was talking to in that audience were the ones who were attacking those civil rights activists. You can't leave that part of the story out, except that's exactly what he did. Yeah, sounds just like John Lewis and his I Spill Blood in Selma routine. Actually, it sounds more like when John Lewis said that he actually thanked the racist police thugs who assaulted him in the 60s, and even thanked them for their service. So you see that whether it be the white right or the white left, Negroes in both political parties fully understand the tune they better sing if they want to have a chance of the political parties putting them on. One more thing, this fool said that we who are demanding reparations are the ones who owe because we're the benefactors of freedom. See, this is what happens when you and your political party decide to ban books, but then again, if you're a Republican, you don't have to worry about your audience being offended at that prospect. The racists who the GOP caters to can't read, and apparently neither can this Robinson clown, because the word benefactor means someone or something that provides help or an advantage, one that confers a benefit. Well, at the very least, he got that part right, because that definitely describes us to a T. We are the benefactors of freedom. Everything about this country that makes it where people are actually able to enjoy something resembling liberty was directly because of our effort and no one else's. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and everything else. These were not the results of the people like Robinson's trying to cater to. They were the ones who wanted to stonewall freedom. We were the ones who made that possible. The vague, hollow sham of freedom, quote-unquote, that America has is directly and owing solely to us. And without us, the little hollow caricature of freedom, quote-unquote, that America has wouldn't even exist. Country wouldn't even have that much if it wasn't for us. It was our ancestor, Crispus Attucks, who was the first person to die in the events leading up to the Revolutionary War. The first casualty of the American Revolution was one of ours. It is the dominant society who owes us and has never paid. They owe for every war we took part in, without which they would have no nation and no freedom. The vast majority of those people who applauded Robinson, they had no ancestors who were even in the United States until the late 19th century. And they didn't come here to build wealth. The wealth already existed. They came across the oceans to take advantage of what was already here, what we had already created. They owe us for centuries of uncompensated labor that built the prosperity that they've enjoyed and didn't have to work for. They owe us for the century and a half that our tax dollars have gone to bootstrap their settlements, their townships, and their suburbs. Look it up. Black dollars from the inner city paid for the suburbs. Because of all the uncompensated labor that black people gave to this country, the biggest contribution of labor that we made was working to try to create some sort of hollow shell of something resembling freedom, something resembling liberty, something resembling democracy. This country owes us for the centuries of uncompensated labor that built the prosperity and the sham of freedom that this nation's non-black citizens enjoy and didn't have to work for. They owe for every time that they stood in the way of progress, from Jim Crow to segregation to the lynchings to the civil rights marches to today. We are owed for every drop of innocent black blood that was spilled in our efforts to try to make this country resemble something like civilization. This Robinson fool doesn't mention the 4 little black girls burned to death in the 16th Street Baptist Church. He doesn't mention the Freedom Riders whose buses were firebombed. He doesn't mention all the lynchings. He doesn't mention Emmett Till. He only mentioned the people who suffered, but he didn't mention the people who died, certainly not by name. He didn't give us that rundown of the fatalities because that doesn't fit his lying narrative. Because if he started saying those names, he would have to go, a lot of y'all applaud me right now. It turns out y'all do owe. He knows the kind of lies he's got to tell if he wants that room full of racists to even consider voting for him. And I guess he figures that because his little hustle was sufficient to get him to the lieutenant governor's position, a little bit more bootlicking with a little extra spit, and why, he could get the top slot. This is how low you gotta stoop if you want the Republican Party to consider you for office. This is how low you gotta go. And by the way, isn't it interesting how these bootlicking, butt-kissing, blowhard sellouts like David Clark and this Robinson clown are constantly talking about how black people have nothing to be angry about, but every time you see them, all they do is scream and yell and tell people that they're angry about what black people are demanding. These guys are the angriest people in the room. We know that it's all performative, though. They're putting on a show. When you look at Mark Robinson, you're seeing someone who's auditioning for a job. He knows that any old white candidate who comes along could easily knock him aside with a flick of their finger. So he has to do this. Grovel, beg, get on his hands and knees, lie about black people's history for the amusement of a putrid gang of prejudiced bigots. This is what happens when you're a bootlick. You can't have any self-respect. That's the first thing that's gotta go. And you can't tell the truth either. You don't care about black people's struggle or history because you're only looking out for yourself. On the right, you pretend that the racism never existed, or if it ever did, it was a long time ago, and if it exists today, then it must be the Democrats or Antifa or BLM, or anyone except for the GOP who gets caught week after week reminiscing about lynching black people, like the degenerates in McCurtain County, Oklahoma did. And I'll be here till 3 in the morning listing them all. On the left side of the ledger, the bootlegs talk about how important everyone else's issues are, and how important it is to do things for everybody except for black people. And they go on Twitter, in public, and make speeches where they openly invite everyone to ride on the coattails of our history and our suffering, saying that, well, what these people who showed up 5 minutes ago, their little minor complaints, why, that's just like Dr. King, that's just like the Freedom Riders. We have a unique history and a unique moral legitimacy. And we cannot allow everybody to decide that they're going to co-opt or otherwise lay claim to our history and try to palm themselves off as being the inheritors of our legacy. That is a historical fraud, and we cannot allow it. Nobody else was enslaved except for us. Nobody else had to endure the black codes or any sort of racial codes except for us. Nobody else had gangs of white supremacist marauders going from coast to coast burning down their townships except for us. Nobody else was systematically told you cannot have any sort of justice for these wrongs done against you except for us. Nobody else was targeted with everything from poll taxes to literacy tests, which were nothing more than caprice for any racist poll officer to say you can't vote. Nobody else was targeted like that except for us. And now we got people who have been engaging in a non-stop parade of claiming that their minor complaints are somehow comparable to our monumental oppression that's been going on from day one. I don't think so. Now, the white right is not crazy. They are indulgent, though. That's why people like this Mark Robinson fool put on the performances for them. These are not people who are concerned about the real issues that ought to concern them. After all, this country has handed them every crumb of their daily bread. They've been given everything they could ever want. Why should they worry? And now they want someone to assure them that they will freeze the world the way that it was, so that they never have to compete, because that's what terrifies them the most. That's the devil's bargain that white supremacy made with those classified as white. There will be no competition, especially not from black people. After 500 years of having everything handed to them and being glorified in the media and lauded by politicians, social scientists, corporations, and even clergy for no reason, when someone threatens to make them actually have to earn a living, well, they're not going to take that very well. The cottage industry and bootlicks for the white right is shrinking, but these chumps haven't cultivated any other skill set, so they have to bootlick. Michael Steele was talking similar claptrap for the brief instant that he was RNC chairman. Not as vitriolic as this goofball, but he was still doing it. And now he's on MSNBC trashing the GOP daily. Bootlicks aren't hired guns, they're hired tongues. They will lick whatever boot that they think will give them the most money. And why is this Mark Robinson chump running against reparations in the first place? Because, like Ron DeSantis down in Florida, his handlers have told him this is a movement that's in the ascendancy, so you gotta do something about it regardless. This is a top priority. If you win higher office, that's fine, but you gotta take this one on regardless. Doesn't matter if it even costs you everything. You've probably seen that lately, reparations has been trending on Twitter regularly. Somebody, Republican donors to be sure, see this as a threat. They got their people online just like the Democrats do. They monitor things like Twitter just to see what's trending. When they saw this, oh, I'm sure they were fit to be tied. Now, of course, the white supremacists are super ultra hypersensitive to anything that even remotely resembles a possible threat, much less challenge. So they react to things that aren't even dangerous to them. But in this case, they sent this buffoon out front, and he's trying to be the candidate of anti-reparations. And he's running against us, is what that means. Now, when's the last time that I saw someone whining that people demanding reparations was dangerous and that they shouldn't be listened to? Oh, that's right, Joy Reid, when she had that stupid segment with Shireen Mitchell a few years back, attacking us as being Russian bots. And what was the rationale for this attack? Because we merely demand what we're owed. So you see that both the white right and the white left bring out their Negro sock puppets to attack our interests. They cannot lead the charge on that one themselves, so they have to get the bootlick flunkies to do it for them. That's how their con works. They get some bootlick who they've got on their payroll, and then they put them on a TV station that they pay for, or at a political rally that they paid for. And the bootlick attacks black people, and then they come along and pretend like, oh, you know, I just couldn't help but hear what it was he was saying about what you niggers need to do. I was just happened to be within earshot. You know what? Since people are talking about it, I just have to throw in my 2 cents, buddy. That's what they do. That's what the bootleg does for them. Lays the groundwork for them to go ahead and butt in because that's what they want from the get-go. So we're seeing a concerted effort to undermine reparations. And it's happening because we're going into another election cycle. This shows you how much of a problem that at least the Republican Party consider reparations to be as a political issue. And they're attacking the people who are advocating for it, but you know who they weren't attacking? They're not attacking do-nothing groups led by Big Bird. He's a safe Negro. He gets put on TV or what have you because he's going to do white power's bidding. That's what he's there for. Now, the last sighting of Big Bird was when he was flapping his wings in Nashville for those two Democratic Party plants. He was supporting their little publicity stunt. And as fate would have it, 2 days ago, MSNBC had this empty sack of feathers back on. That's 2 times now that MSNBC has had this guy on. Not because of anything he did, but merely because he was standing next to someone who had allegedly done something newsworthy. Now, the segment was on Ari Melber's show. Ari Melber, or as I like to call him, the king of cringe. He's not a total dumpster fire, but he is the most corny white anchor man on TV. He is so mega cringe when he constantly drops rap lyrics into his show for no real reason, which, by the way, he never does with any other group or at any other time. It's only black people that he seems to think worthy of deciding that he's going to be dropping some Jay-Z lyrics in there or what have you. He makes it where whenever it comes time to talk about politics, well, let's go ahead and make it silly. This is more of that get your booty to the polls stuff. That's the well he draws from. He obviously thinks that it makes him sound hip or like he's down with black people, but it makes him seem like he's trying his hand at comedy and it's not working. And his regular appearances on the Breakfast Schlubs don't help him. Does he think it gives him street cred? I don't know how. All people see is that he's a corny anchor on MSNBC and the Breakfast Schlubs are a bunch of bootlicking tools. Ari Melber comes off as a less obnoxious version of Bill Maher. Just because he hasn't pulled the same mess as Maher and gone overboard taking liberties with our history and our culture doesn't mean that he won't do it. That train is never late. Now, the reason that Melber had Big Bird on in the first place was not to talk to him. It was because there was a rapper who had made a song about police brutality. So why the hell was Big Bird even there? He didn't make the video, he didn't produce it. Hell, he wasn't even a backup singer on the track. So why was he even there? It's because the black grassroots are talking. And the white media's attempts to try to prop up some new black frontmen isn't going over like they thought it would. They're getting considerable pushback, and they know who it's coming from. So the only thing that they can do is the same thing, just more of it. Let's go ahead and put Big Bird on more often because the last 5 or 6 times we had him on worked out so well. As for Ari Melber, he's just trying to increase his own viewership by appealing to the very young black people who creeps like Joke Reed and clowns like Jonathan Capehart and Tiffany Cross ran off. But you won't be surprised to know that during this very segment, not a word was said about reparations, not by Ari Melber and certainly not by Big Bird. So this is what your so-called head of the alleged nation's oldest reparations advocacy group did when he was on MSNBC. He says nothing about reparations. He didn't so much as breathe the word reparations when he was on Joy Reid's show 2 weeks ago, and didn't dare say it when he was on Ari Melber's show 2 days ago. So what does that tell you? What that tells you is this is the reason the white media even puts his raggedy behind on TV. So much for your reparations advocate, right? Family, whenever you talk about the systematic racism that we face, we have to make sure that reparations comes up time and again. We gotta actually say that word. We have to remind people that the American police came out of the old slave catchers. Remind people that the KKK had a large police membership and that their various spin-off groups still do. We have to stop being bashful about saying reparations. That word makes all these other people scared and nervous because they know they owe us. And we have to make it a point to get comfortable with making other people uncomfortable. Because their comfort has come at the cost of our comfort, our well-being, and our lives. Well, I've got news for Ari Melber, Joy Reid, and the rest of the empty suits over at MSNBC. They can go ahead and put that guy on all they want. Hell, they can go ahead and give him a show. He's already got a radio show that nobody listens to. Why not a TV show that nobody watches? The reason this guy doesn't move the needle no matter how much TV exposure he gets is because people don't take him seriously. Because the black media has already educated them about exactly who and what this guy is. The white media sees how every time Big Bird leaves Sesame Street to go chase the cameras, he gets clowned by the new black media. The white media is trying to prop up their tools, put them on this or that show, and hopefully give them some instant credibility, except these white media stations aren't giving people legitimacy. What they're doing is they're exposing who the tools are. And that's because we're out here smartening people up. So when you see these people on these major white media networks like MSNBC and CNN and what have you, if you don't see the white host attacking them, that means that they're a tool. And this is good. The white left tried to ignore us and it didn't work. The white right is trying to attack us, and that will only backfire because it's going to help to magnify our profile. We're too dangerous.
Yep. And you know why he said that? Because of this.
This indestructible $99 drone is now available in the US. This powerful $99 drone.
Every day the white supremacists always have something in the back of their mind when it comes to black people. They know what they have done to us historically, even all the way up until 2023. You see, they would have that thought in the back of their mind about black people if they weren't doing us wrong. Understand? Black people never wanted to really get at them about it. Black people just wanted to live in peace. They even wanted to forgive black people, and yet these people still attacking black folks every day. But I want you to hear what this gentleman is going to say about what their greatest fear is with black folks. Let's roll that.
It is the stupidity of man to think that he can do evil, even some monstrous evil, and it won't have any backlash on himself. But of course, it seldom works that way, and the moment he figures that out, he starts looking for a way to avoid the repercussions of what he's done. This is what happened with slavery. In the early 1800s, as it began to look like the end of slavery might be on the horizon, white America started to be concerned that a day of reckoning was coming. The primary fear for the average person was of retribution and insurrection, and that was a reasonable fear. After all, it's illogical to think that you can do to a whole group of people what was done to African Americans and think that they will just take it lying down forever. And of course, there were things like the Nat Turner uprisings. But for the wealthy elite, their fears went beyond things like insurrection. They were worried about the financial impact. Remember, it was not just the cotton plantations that profited from slavery. Whether you're talking about the banks or the insurance companies, the railroads, even the newspapers, the fact is that almost every aspect of the American economy was at some level or another invested in the slave business. You also need to recognize that for the wealthy elitists who controlled this system, slaves were an asset as long as they were slaves. But at the moment they are set free, they become a liability. And what the elite knew was that the end of slavery would instantly release 4 million people into the economy who had been kept uneducated and effectively unemployable anywhere but the cotton field. The other fear that these people had was intermarriage between blacks and whites would lead to a loss of racial purity. The question was, what were they going to do about it? And their initial thought was that they would just send all the slaves back to Africa. This plan was called colonization, and it had broad support among the wealthy elite. In fact, the American Colonization Society was even funded by the United States Congress. But in the end, colonization proved to be unworkable, and the idea was eventually scrapped. But about that same time, a new philosophy was emerging in the world. It was called eugenics, and for some, it seemed like the perfect solution to what had become known as the Negro dilemma.
Now, he definitely touched on a lot of things. It's definitely, the one part that was, quite interesting when they wanted to send all of us back to Africa through the American Colonization Society. That's what actually created Liberia, and it was shipping us back there, and they said it just didn't work for them. But you have to understand that shipping us back to Africa was actually done under Lincoln.
The other fear that these people had was intermarriage between blacks and whites would lead to a loss of racial purity. The question was, what were they going to do about it? And their initial thought was that they would just send all the slaves back to Africa. This plan was called colonization, and it had broad support among the wealthy elite. In fact, the American Colonization Society was even funded by the United States Congress.
Exceptional whiskeys that hit all the high notes and deliver the details. Buzzards Roost.
Repression Society was even funded by the United States Congress.
And after Lincoln was, killed, I noticed that all that stopped. Because let's call it what it is. Black people were the labor force in America. Black people were all the builders, even after slavery. They wouldn't build anything. So you ship all black folks back to the African continent, then who's going to build something? Who's going to do the work? Because they sure didn't want to do it. They didn't want to get their hands dirty for anything, right?
Right.
But he talked about eugenics. And this is why a lot of black people don't even trust the medical system at all in America due to that. So many experiments have been done to black Americans. Of course, we talk about Tuskegee and so many others that have been done to black people. Things have been done in prisons to black people just to even test out their medicine to see what's going to happen. But every day, in the back of their mind, they deal with that guilt, shame, and thought about black people and their retribution. So when you have a message like reparations and you're forceful with it, it starts to bother them because they think in the back of their mind, are black people actually going to get angry and do us something? When you were talking about George Floyd, in the back of their mind, oh man, they out there actually doing something in the street. Are they going to get me? Because I look like the police? That's what they think. This is why they always have this attitude that they scared of black folk and all of that. Because some black folk in their mind, especially when you're not afraid of them, and they know you're not afraid, they get really worried with you. But instead of dealing with their issues, they rather continue to attack us more and more and more. That's what they continue to do. Instead of dealing with things the right way.
That way. And the moment he figures that out, he starts looking for a way to avoid the repercussions of what he's done. This is what happened with slavery. In the early 1800s, as it began to look like the end of slavery might be on the horizon, white America started to be concerned that a day of reckoning was coming. The primary fear for the average person was of retribution and insurrection, and that was a reasonable fear. After all, it's illogical to think that you can do to a whole group of people what was done to African Americans and think that they will just take it lying down forever. And of course, there were things like the Nat Turner uprisings. But for the wealthy elite, their fears went beyond things like insurrection. They were worried about the financial impact. Remember, it was not just the cotton plantations that profited from slavery. Whether you're talking about the banks or the insurance companies, the railroads, even the newspapers.
But it doesn't matter how they feel about us. It doesn't matter about their mindset at all. Only thing we got to focus on is ourselves, unifying in our community, focusing on what we need to fight for, like reparations, getting rid of the bootlicking, shucking and jiving raccoons that side with white supremacy, and making relations with black people all over the world, trading with each other, growing with each other. That's what we need to focus on, not these people. Because I would not want to be them. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't want to be in a position where in the back of my mind I'm worried about somebody getting at me. I wouldn't want to be in that position. That's a bad position to be in. I would never want to live like that. But let me know what y'all think about, what this man is saying here.
That's a good question. But this one woman had one good question to the Black Americans on his channel.
Leading on the top of the third. Oh, it's a blue.
This African woman from over in Africa. She had a brilliant question.
Just the third inning.
We have a sister here that's actually on the continent. She's not here in America. And she's reaching out to black Americans just to let them know that, you do have options. You don't have to sit up here and put up with these people all your life. You can return to, the motherland if you so choose to. But let's go ahead and roll that clip.
Dear Black Americans, you are taught that Africans, we are savages. We are not. We are cultured. We are educated. We are knowledgeable. Unfortunately, we are poor on the surface. But beneath us, we have everything the whole world needs. They tell you this to try to stop you from coming back to motherland because you are the very, very backbone that builds the economy. If you were to relocate back to Africa, you would disable them as a continent. Africa is the only place you would never be racially discriminated against. Africa is the only place where you will never have to fear if you will die the next day or not. Black Americans, you are us. We care about you. We need you as much as you need us. Your color tells you who you are and where you belong. Stop forcing yourself to fit in places you'll never fit.
What made me want to make this video is really the last part of what she said about paraphrasing, being places that you're not wanted.
Your color tells you who you are and where you belong. Stop forcing yourself to fit in places you'll never fit.
In America, every single day we are seeing more and more how this system doesn't want black Americans here. They're importing people into this country who isn't citizens at all, and they putting them in the black neighborhoods. And a lot of black Americans say, okay, what is this about? Why are they doing all that? Why are they trying to push us out of our own communities? You look at what's happening in Chicago right now. People are pissed off because of what they're trying to do. Now, my personal experience, of course, in African countries I've been to, no, I've never been discriminated against for no skin color, no. No, I didn't have any issues with the police. I didn't feel the energy that I normally would feel here in America. Now, let's be realistic. The police in African countries, they can get turned up. They can. But I'm not trying to have no interactions with them when they feel like they need to do that with me, right? But for me, I've always said this before, I have more peace when I'm on the African continent. I'm telling you, just being away from the white supremacists, even if for a short time, gives you a peace that really I need. I gotta have that peace. If I can just be out of here every 3 months, if I can take off every 3 months for a week, I'm good. Being away from the white supremacists, it is peace. It really is. And when you don't know that feeling of peace, sometimes you can get upset about it and feel like, oh, well, why y'all always talking about that? But what the sister said is true. That's why I say, you know what? Okay, I need to figure out what I need to do. That way, when the day and time come, then I can do that because I just enjoy that. I enjoy watching the ocean, and I enjoy the good food and being around people that look like me and don't have to worry about all the issues and problems that we have in America. Them important people weaponized against the black man and woman of America, because that's all they doing is important people all over the place that have hostilities toward the black man and woman. It gets old real fast, and sometimes you just need a break from some of that. So yes, this sister is definitely spot on that black people can get some rest in the African continent. Of course, choose to place wisely. Don't ever just uproot yourself. Like, go visit. Case in point, we have the Ghana trip coming up in October. We got a few spots left for that, so make sure you sign up, pay your deposit for that, because that's a rest and relaxation you can have away from the white supremacists. Central Global and African Diaspora News Channel presents the Ghana Luxury Property Tour. It will be a 8-day tour coming to you starting October 1 through October 8, 2023. Now, you enjoy a 5-star stay at a hotel, the finest properties in Ghana. You connect with industry professionals. You will also visit cultural landmarks, have a meet and greet with the team, and so much more. Make sure that you go to the description box below, hit that link just to sign up. And you need that for your mental health sake. You really do. You realize removing yourself away from the white supremacists, even for a time, how good that is for you in your mental health. And one thing as black people, we don't take care of our mental health as we should. And that's evident in the way we do things. It's evident how much we abuse alcohol. It's evident, how we abuse drugs. We do all kinds of destructive things to ourselves, just trying to self-medicate. Sometimes the best self-medication is getting away from the white supremacists into a area, in a good area where you can have your people, and then you'll be good. You can have some rest and relaxation, and then you can come on back to Babylon. At least you have more energy to be charged until at least your energy run down, some more, right?
They tell you this to try stop you from coming back to motherland because you are the very, very backbone that builds the economy. If you were to relocate back to Africa, you would disable them as a continent. Africa is the only place you would never be racially discriminated against. Africa is the only place where you would never have to fear if you would die the next day or not.
A person like myself that's doing this content all the time, seeing the things that I see, yeah, I gotta take vacation or try to have some sort of break every 3 months. It's just for my mental health's sake, so I can be here and be optimal for you, and optimal just for everybody else that's even depend on me, right? So make sure you check out that link below with the Ghana trip. Like I said,
But the exodus has begun.
A wave of African Americans are choosing to move to the African continent.
We begin this hour with the story of an African country opening its arms to Black Americans. There are 5,000 Black Americans who have already gone back to Ghana because they don't feel comfortable here.
I feel much more connected.
That the nation has the hospitality is second to none.
Sanchez weeps. This is her homecoming.
When you see them people, they look just like your family.
I was like, whoa, this is nothing like they told us.
It was amazing to be welcomed. I mean, it blows me away.
In the last few years, thousands of Black Americans have returned from America to live in Africa. In this video, I'm going to show you several video clips, which is going to be what these people who have actually returned to Africa to live in Africa have to say about Africa versus United States. Anyway, we have to get into it.
Thousands. Did you say thousands?
I was living what people would consider the American dream. I was educated, professional, had friends. I was a socialite, but I never felt safe.
She was constantly looking over her shoulder.
My immediate thought all the time was, oh my gosh, what if a police officer pulls me over? Am I going to be physically safe? Am I going to come out of it alive?
A retired American teacher who had lived in Memphis all her life never thought she would leave. But in the summer of 2017, she experienced what she calls a wake-up call.
I was 57 at the time, and I was stopped by the police, 6 cars. They said my car was stolen, and they put me in cuffs. And I was like, this is saying that it's time for me to go.
2 months later, she decided to leave the U.S. for good.
And that's how it was for me. I called home while I was here. The first week I said, I'm not coming home.
How did they respond?
They said, be careful. And I'm like, no, it's more dangerous in the U.S. than it is there. I mean, it's peaceful. The people are inviting. They're welcoming.
There, staring you in the face, and I am not sure if there's any way around it or out of it or anything that will fix it. And this is the reason why we left.
The cost of living keeps you working, and you never get a chance to come back. I know there are people that have been in America for decades. You're struggling to make ends meet. They're trying to pay their rent. You get so caught up in paying bills, you don't have time to save.
As Black Americans, we're starting to come to the realization of our place in America. We're coming to understand that America was really never meant for us to be there as free people.
In a sense, that's why you left America. It's to reclaim yourself.
Exactly.
I would be here all day if I was telling you all the experiences that I had with racism in the United States. Really, from being followed in stores, to being pulled over by police for no reason, to not being offered a job. I'll be here all the day explaining to you on a daily basis what it is like to be black.
I feel much more connected, and I look at people and I say, oh my goodness, that could have been, these people could be related to me. These people probably knew my grandmother's grandmother's grandmother.
If I'm honest with myself, I wasn't living in America, I was doing in America. I could hardly breathe.
If we take a horse and from one country to another country, right? Say if it's an African horse or an African elephant, and you take it to a circus or a zoo in somewhere in America, does the child of that elephant all of a sudden not belong to where the mother or father of that elephant came from? No, that elephant has a home too. And for me, Kenya, Africa is, was, always will be home in terms of this lifetime.
I've been in Africa for a little over 11 years now. Once I landed on the continent, I felt so at home, I felt at ease, I felt at peace. It was a natural emotion to want to move to Africa.
I've been a victim of police brutality from a very early age. 11 years old, walking with a friend of mine in London, two white officers approached me, directly stepped on my toes and said, why am I walking with a white person, and headbutt me in my face. And I was only 11 years old at the time. It's been a long time after slavery. It's been a long time after colonization. Things need to change, and the only way it can happen is if the diasporans move back.
My journey started with wanting to serve, and it comes from I think a place of ignorance of what we've been taught, the lack of what we've been taught about the continent, and unfortunately the little bit of information that we were taught was the bad things. So growing up, you're believing that there's always something bad on the continent. Inside of me, I really wanted to come to a place that I felt that people looked like me and where that it would make a bigger impact.
Raising my family here brings me a sense of relief that I know my children will be safe. I know that they'll make friends much more easily, and I know that they'll actually have a chance to be children.
Life here in Uganda is much more manageable than life was in America. In America, I constantly felt on pressure. I constantly felt stressed because I always have to make ends meet. I wouldn't even be able to enjoy my paycheck. Oftentimes, I wouldn't even get days off because I'm constantly working and I'm constantly trying to prove my worth in a country that has basically made my people look like we are worthless.
You see diaspora leaving America. Many people think that it's about running away from what's going on in this. And I think more so it should be more thought about going after who you are and what you're for, not what you're against.
It felt like a symbol for 2020. I can't breathe, George Floyd said, and COVID, people battling, and here you are, able to breathe.
Still I'm breathing, yeah, very much so.
The therapy practice is now all online, and while she misses the convenience of modern American life, she's no longer looking over her shoulder.
I feel loved, I feel supported, I feel regarded, I feel like I matter. I don't feel like I'm looked at for the color of my skin. I'm just a person here.
Home is not a place. It's how you feel where you are. The feeling of belonging, the feeling of welcome, and a sense of freedom.
The biggest difference is, for me, is peace of mind. I just have peace of mind. I'm with my family, my children. I have peace of mind on the continent that potentially they may have not had in America.
I've been in Uganda for about 2 years. years off and on. Now this year I decided to stay permanently. So I chose to be here because the cost of living is much more maintainable, and I don't feel like I'm in danger anymore. Like there's other things that I have to be worried about, but I don't feel like a target. I don't feel like someone wants to take my life or wants to control my life just because of my color.
When we came here, the ultimate decision-making aspect was seeing how happy the children were here and how easily they made friends. And that was such a relief to me, and I was so happy. And we decided to stay. We just fell in love with Tanzania. We just wanted to feel somewhere where we felt at home.
I've always felt a part of Ghana. When I met my husband, this has always been his dream to move back to Africa. We retired and we're living the dream.
Wow.
In paradise, I call it. Seriously, paradise.
America is not in reality the way it has been presented to most of the world. And now I think most of the world is beginning to see that. If you're from the continent and you want to go to America, I feel like you should probably rethink that and think about rebuilding what you have here, because what you have here is so much more beautiful and magnificent than what you could ever find somewhere else.
When I say that I'm home, I'm truly home, because when I come through immigration and they asked me, they said, "Oh, why are you here?" I said, "Oh, I'm home."
Life here is much more relaxed, laid back. Honestly, everywhere I've been on the continent so far, I feel much more safe here than I ever felt in the United States.
If I have a choice in the matter, no, I would not move back there. There are 54 different countries in Africa, I think 55 actually. So I can choose a different country if need be, but there is no reason for me to have to go back to America to face what I have dealt with my entire life.
I don't anticipate ever moving back to America because I really feel at home where I am.
I'm about to end this video, but I told you. So if you ever get a monetary value settlement of reparations or any lottery winnings or anything, or something really big financially can lift you out and lift you to another place, and you don't constantly have to go through that. If you're a Black American, you might want to consider going back. You might want to. I mean, why not? I mean, look at how the way I played earlier in this video, how the political parties play you. You're a hand puppet. When it comes to Republican and Democrat, you have Black people that even look like you, that are stonewashed and brainwashed. They even think that. And it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you still can't go. I have played videos. You still got sundown towns here in America, and you better get out of town, or it can cost you your life or your freedom. Why not leave America? I mean, I understand some of the videos I've been playing on my channel. Why not? The question is, what you gotta be subjugated when you go into an area to be looked at. Question: why are you existing in my presence by some people who are white? You know, always you're on guard in different parts of this country. Why not? I mean, I don't blame them people for. I mean, it's constantly coming at you like that. And you heard what the beginning of the video is. You are integrated into a burning house. You got even other groups come from other places being racist or towards against you. Even once they pick up the spirit of racism, they use it against Black people. The number one people that built was one of the people that built the country. Why not? You know, why not leave it? You subjugated it, and like the woman said, you constantly, that is, and like Phil said, is, and what these other people are saying, you're constantly being reminded, and at some point, it does affect you mentally. Then whatever affects you mentally, eventually, it might, and then the food is affecting you in your body. So even if you do all the exercise and eat right, you still got to deal with the mental process of racism. in some form or fashion in some place in America. So why not? So if the Lord bless you with it, it's time to do what the ancient Hebrews do. It's time to pick up and leave Egypt, Rome. America is mixed up, the Rome and Egypt. Now it's casting down to society. And like you see how it is, it's hard just to exist from paycheck to paycheck. And then you have to go through, in whatever mental emotion, you got to go through the favoritism, the nepotism on some jobs. You have to question that. You have to question the punishment, like with this young man that got choked out to death. And somebody made a good point. What if the young man was a black man, was a Marine, and the white man was had some mental problem? He did the same thing. What would the outcome be? So justice ain't really justice, because subconsciously you are dealing with a subconscious racist covered up coded system in America. Why not? So hey, if you want these black people to think about, listen to it, by all means, I salute you. Get your peace of mind if you decide to leave this country. I understand. Don't worry about what family, because they already, family is going to be some black people that have been groomed that think that we're groomed. And I was taught the same way. Africa, what is this? Africa was, I never been to continent of Africa. Them Africans over there, I don't trust them Africans. But yet, you're subjugated and systematically being racist here. Then when you get on the job, you go subconsciously. It's one thing to go through things in life, but you subconsciously got to go through your head. You got to see the favoritism, the nepotism on some of these jobs, and all kind of isms on these jobs. Why not? I would. Hey, then you see how the way the politics is. It don't matter if you Democrat, Republican. Look what they doing to black people in Chicago and in New York. It don't matter if you Democrat, Republican. And look, they put a black person to say, wait a minute, you can't say I was racist. You got a black mayor. You got a black representative. You see how that goes? They control everything. And you got your hand puppets on the Republican. You got your hand puppets on the Democrat. But you're black first before you can claim you're Republican, Democrat, or other left-wing, right-wing, conservative. You're still black. And subconsciously, even you got some whatever group of people, majority are the white and other people, you're still black. You still can't go through sundown towns. You still subjugated. Like I said, played the video earlier. And this is what they don't understand. Well, you still go to a place like Vidor, Texas. You still can't go to, or some place in Georgia, Mississippi. You can't go through some place in Illinois. What difference does it make whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat when it's all based on the color of your skin? And you have seen video I have made on this. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or Muslim or whatever. Your color, even in other countries, based on global supremacy and supremacy here, tells you otherwise. You have to fight and gain. And then when you lift yourself by the bootstrap, you hear what happened. They got to throw a monkey wrench in it. When you hit to a certain level, they'll throw a monkey wrench in it in America. Who's doing that? Just now recently, I didn't get a chance to play the video about the black farmer. Black farmers can't even get no justice here, for they're part of the American system of farming. But even when you're black farmers can't even get no justice, who own the land since the times of their ancestors. What good is it going to do? And then the white farmers are trying to let the government allow the white farmers to sabotage it. The court system, the police system. Where you being patriotic like a mother, and the guy who the black farmer is a veteran. He's a veteran. He was in the military. Where's America been great? I don't know. I don't want to go into that rant, but you see the video for yourself, and I can show you there are black farmers who are part of the industry, like white farmers and other farmers here in America. They can't get justice. They can't get the help that they need for their crops, for their land. They still gentrification. They still robbing black people. Racism, oh, no it's not. No. It's transformed. It's in the politics. Let's write out of the history books. We don't want them to know that we're going to subjugate them. We don't want them to know that they'll continue their medical experiments. Fauci. We don't want them to know. You see these black people? It's never going away. From the time Martin Luther King, he understood that. He might have to send a premonition what was coming. And let Harry Belafonte know. It's not going away. So if God bless you to get land and enough resources and minerals, leave. Why you keep what? So they can take it back from you? The white supremacists, as they say, do what they did that man out in Colorado. Set charges up on you. Slap charges up on you. You gotta fight. You gotta pay the court system. This what, and that man didn't do anything, but he didn't cause anything. It was white people attacking his stock. That's them your 40 acres and a mule. That's America. They did it back during the time in the 1800s. We in 2022, in the 20th century, it's still the same thing. You have white people still doing this and not getting arrested for it, not paying for it. Why won't you not go back to Africa? You gotta see these delusional black with the sand bowls. America's great. Yeah. For you. And they said, don't mess with that. He's our favorite colored man. You see how Simon says? You see the Simon says in this? Simon says, don't mess with that colored man. He's one of us. That's when they didn't like you when you're colored. You're all right when you're black. You're cool when you're Negro. And when you're bad, you know what the other word is. The N-I-G-G-E-R. Simon, why? Remember that game Simon Says? That's America invented that game. Simon Says till out, and there are a lot of people in Western America think this mindset when it comes to seeing people that look like us. Simon Says, I don't know you felt that way. Simon Says, what's the big deal? When you see kids, Simon Says, you must be causing a delusion. Simon Says, well, wait till I get up hard. You stay down and you stay low and let me rise. But I work hard. Simon Says. That's the code to you. Even they put it in a nursery rhyme game. Think about it. Think about it. You're living under the system of Simon Says. From your White House, your president, to your state senate and your local everything, local district. Simon Says. You're under the same system. It's on your job. Simon Says. It's in the medical field. Simon Says. It's policing you. Courts against you. Simon Says. I thought it was justice. Simon Says. Till I feel like you're a human being. Anyway, that's a lesson for the day. Till next time, I hope you enjoy this video. Share, like it with somebody. And that's the only solution, is to be free. If you're black watching this video, get among your own people. They're right. You want to be relieved and have a sound mind, get around the righteousness of your own people. Let me clarify that. The ones who have the gift of vision, they're going to take away and cunning and craft you. And they're about you for you, and will help you. They're out there. Take care.